there is one day in the year that somehow carries a special radiance. Our birthday. A day when one is supposed to feel happy, grateful, and festive, because one was born. Even as children, we learn that birthdays are a kind of obligatory celebration of the soul, a sign of life, a reason to smile. But over time, that changes, and many eventually feel something different, something deeper, that doesn't quite fit the common idea of joy. Some people wake up on their birthday with a strange feeling of emptiness, with a quiet mood they themselves don't fully understand, while others celebrate, laugh, and blow out candles. They simply wish for peace. They would rather gaze silently into the flame, as if trying to find in it a question they have not yet answered. Perhaps it is not sadness, nor ingratitude. Perhaps it is a kind of quiet respect for the passing of time, an awareness that each year brings not only age, but also experiences, wounds, and transformations that shape us in invisible ways. Behind cake, laughter, and gifts, something far more symbolic is happening. Every birthday is a meeting between ego and soul. The ego wants to celebrate, to be seen, to receive gifts. But the soul often only wants to observe, to reflect, to understand what has changed within us, what has died, and what has been newly born. And this is where a question arises that few dare to ask. Why do some people not enjoy their birthday? Is it suppression, or perhaps a deeper sign of connection with oneself? Carl Jung once said that much of what society calls strange is often the beginning of an inner process of maturation. Maybe someone does not celebrate because they are finally listening to the quiet voice of their unconscious. Sometimes, the soul does not want noise. It wants meaning. And in that silence which others do not understand, there often lies a deep wisdom about who we really are and where we are going. We live in a society that has turned happiness into a moral duty. From childhood, we are taught that sadness is a mistake, that we should always smile, even when something inside us is breaking. Birthdays, unfortunately, have become a clear example of this emotional expectation. If you don't post photos, throw a party, or share enthusiastic thank yous on social media, questions come immediately. Is everything okay? Why aren't you celebrating? What's wrong? As if silence or thoughtfulness were a sign of inner defect. But what many call apathy is often pure authenticity. Some people don't want to fake a joy. They do not feel nor follow the social script that dictates how a birthday should be properly lived. That is not a sign of bitterness, but of deep respect for one's own inner state. Jung said that the mask, the persona, is necessary to function in the world. But he also warned against confusing it with our true identity. The problem begins when we believe we must be happy just because others expect it, not because we truly are. Many, therefore, celebrate their birthday, not out of joy, but to avoid disappointing anyone. They force themselves to smile, to toast, to converse, though everything within them is calling for silence. This inner voice is then drowned out with music, noise, laughter, as if we wanted to cover the echo of a truth we are unwilling to hear. Jung knew that everything we suppress eventually finds a way to reveal itself. If we ignore our true feelings, the unconscious responds in its own way, with emptiness, restlessness, or inexplicable sadness, precisely on the day we are supposed to be happy. This is no coincidence. It is the conflict between duty and being, between what the world demands and what the soul truly needs. The more we try to hide it behind a false smile, the stronger the feeling that something is not right becomes. Perhaps the problem does not lie in not wanting to celebrate, but in having to. Our society has taught us that those who do not celebrate seem ungrateful. But Jung would say, gratitude does not always show in applause and joy. Sometimes it shows in silence, in reflection, in an honest look within. Not all hearts celebrate in the same way. And perhaps in this very difference lies a wisdom our time has forgotten, the freedom to be authentic, even if it means disappointing the expectations of others. There are moments in life when the soul does not want to be seen, but to be understood. moments when solitude does not hurt, but becomes a sacred space, an inner refuge, where consciousness can breathe, without masks, without expectations. For some, a birthday means exactly that, a moment when the outer world wants to celebrate, while their inner world asks for silence. Jung said that the human soul has its own rhythm and its own cycles. There are days when it wants to shine, to open up, to seek connection, and there are others when it retreats to look inward and to reorder what time and experience have thrown into disarray. The problem is that we have learned to see silence as something threatening, when in truth it is one of the deepest languages of the soul. It is no wonder, then, that many feel an inexplicable melancholy on their birthday, a feeling that does not come from the present, but from something deeper, as if the soul were remembering all the paths it has already walked, while also sensing all those still ahead. It is not sadness, but a sharp awareness of the passing of time, a mirror in which one recognizes oneself with everything that was and everything that has been lost. When the soul longs for silence, it is not out of disinterest or apathy, but because it needs space to hear itself. Modern life has conditioned us to fear emptiness, to fill every moment with noise, conversation, light, and activity. Yet the soul is not nourished by that. It lives on pauses. It lives on the silence that allows us to feel who we are when without the voices of others telling us who we should be. Some people do not wish for company on their birthday, but for meaning. They do not seek laughter, but understanding, not gifts, but answers. And this inner search, however strange it may seem to others, is one of the most genuine forms of individuation. For when someone says, "I don't want to celebrate, I want to understand myself," they are following a voice from their unconscious. See, a voice often drowned out by the noise of the world. Jung knew that the human soul does not transform through noise, but through silence. This inner calm that some feel on their birthday is in truth the echo of a profound inner process, a kind of symbolic rebirth in which one lets go of an old version of oneself to make room for a new one. Not everyone notices it, but on every birthday, something in us also dies. Wishes that no longer serve us, bonds that have not survived the passage of time. And in the empty space that remains, something new begins to grow, a clear understanding of who we are, what we seek, and what truly matters. That is why we should listen. When the soul asks for silence, it is not a rejection of life, but an expression of reverence for its depth. Sometimes that silence is the language with which the unconscious reminds us that we are alive, not only because we breathe, but because we continue to transform. The passage of time, hardly anything confronts a human being more than the feeling that the years slip through the fingers like fine sand. And yet, not everyone experiences them the same way. For some, time is a sequence of celebrations, successes, laughter, and photographs. For others, however, each new year is not a festival but a mirror, one that reflects not only the face, but also the story behind it. Carl Jung observed that the way a person deals with time reveals the state of their soul. Time, he said, is not only a chronological phenomenon, but a symbol, a psychological reality through which the unconscious speaks to us every year on our birthday. And thus, this day can become a symbolic portal in which the soul invites us to look back, and at the same time, to look within. When the calendar shows a new year of life, the unconscious senses in it an opportunity for self-examination. Dates carry power because they awaken something within us, memories that have slept, unresolved emotions, wishes that were never fulfilled. That is why some people feel a strange fatigue or a melancholy without clear reason on their birthday. It is not the fear of aging. It is the unconscious using that moment to confront us with everything not yet understood, not yet healed, not yet brought out of the shadows. When time is viewed through the eyes of the soul, it ceases to be linear. Each year does not only lead us forward, but also inward. It places us before our old choices, our former selves, our unfulfilled promises. Thus, a birthday can become a kind of symbolic transition, an invisible boundary between what we no longer are and what we may yet become. It is no coincidence that many feel the urge to reassess their lives precisely on these days. The unconscious uses the experience of time to show us what needs to change. It makes us feel the restlessness of what is still unintegrated, what has not yet been accepted. That is why a birthday sometimes does not feel like a celebration, but like a mirror that reveals truths we have long avoided. Time is one of the great teachers of the soul, even if we rarely recognize it. It does not speak with words, but with sensations, with the feeling of passing, with the melancholy of looking at old photographs, with the awareness that we are no longer the same. This quiet unease is not a curse, but an invitation to reconcile with our story, to embrace the parts of ourselves that remain stuck somewhere in the past. Jung said that every symbol of the unconscious has a function to bring us closer to wholeness. Time is one of these great symbols. It reminds us of impermanence, but also of the possibility of renewal. Each year that passes is not a loss, but a reminder that we continue to evolve, that we are still on the way to becoming who we truly are. Perhaps that is why some feel no desire to celebrate, because inwardly they sense that a birthday is more than a cheerful date, that it is a quiet encounter with the mystery of time. And in the face of this mystery, the soul does not seek noise, but understanding. There are days when life feels quieter and slower, as if the soul wished to pause. On birthdays, this is often felt especially strongly. While the outer world wants to celebrate, something within us withdraws, as if a deeper layer finally wished to speak. This inner retreat, which many interpret as disinterest or sadness, can in truth have a symbolic meaning. It is the ego stepping back, so that the unconscious can express itself. The ego, that part of our psyche that builds identity, lives from the attention of others, from recognition and affection. On a birthday, it is especially in the spotlight, receiving messages, congratulations, attention. Yet for some, the opposite happens. Instead of feeling seen, they feel exposed. Instead of joy, they experience a strange distance, as if the image others celebrate does not match what they truly feel. In that moment, the ego withdraws and a deeper, older voice emerges. That of the unconscious. It does not seek congratulations. It seeks meaning. The unconscious uses such moments of openness to remind us that we are more than our social mask, more than achievements, more than dates on a calendar. This feeling of emptiness that may arise is not a lack, but an opening. When the ego falls silent, the illusion of control dissolves. We realize that we truly control neither time, nor feelings, nor the direction of our life. This realization can shake us, but it also liberates, because it creates space in which the soul may breathe without the pressure of having to be someone specific. Jung observed that the unconscious reveals itself especially when the ego yields, through symbols, dreams, sudden insights, or subtle sensations. That is why it is no coincidence that people often have meaningful dreams around their birthday, that old memories surface, or that they feel an unusual sensitivity. The unconscious uses this crack in the facade to bring to light what wants to be recognized. If we have the courage to listen to this quiet voice, we discover something essential, that behind the apparent sadness or emptiness lies a call to reconnect with the essence within ourselves. Not with the image the world has of us, but with the truth of who we are. The retreat of the ego is not a failure, but a natural process. The unconscious does not destroy the ego, it transforms it. And every year, as the circle of our birthday closes, a part of us is renewed. An old identity dies, so that a new one can emerge. This process is not always joyful, but it is full of meaning. So when someone seems quiet or thoughtful on their birthday, it does not mean they are sad. Perhaps they are experiencing a quiet inner ritual. the moment when the ego grows silent, so that the soul can finally speak. And when someone feels no desire to celebrate, they should not be regarded with astonishment or pity, but with respect. For often that silence is not a no to life, but another way of honoring it. Some simply sense that life is not measured in years, but in meaning, and that time, for those who feel more deeply, is not a line, but a spiral, leading us step by step toward our innermost center. The soul does not celebrate for no reason. It celebrates when it has understood something. And sometimes, for that, it must remain silent. What many interpret as disinterest or emptiness can in truth be a quiet search, limiting the need for meaning. That feeling of emptiness or inner distance, which some experience around their birthday, is not necessarily negative. It is a sign. The soul is saying, something no longer fulfills me. Something has lost its value. And only in silence, in this apparent apathy, can we truly hear the message. Jung knew that the strongest symbols of the unconscious do not appear loudly, but quietly. The soul does not shout. It whispers. So if someone has no desire to celebrate, the unconscious may be saying, find within yourself the reason why you live, not the one others impose on you, not the one religion expects, but the one that aligns with your deepest truth. Sometimes disinterest is not a lack of joy, but an inner resistance to the superficial, a natural response to the social obligation to appear happy, even when one feels empty inside. When the soul says, I no longer want to play, I want to feel, it is demanding authenticity. The true conflict is not between joy and sadness, but between authenticity and conformity. When we fake happiness to avoid disappointing others, we betray something essential within ourselves. But when we can say, I don't feel it today, and that's okay, then we honor our psyche. That honesty, uncomfortable as it may be, is the beginning of a genuine dialogue with the unconscious. Jung explained that every suppressed emotion becomes a shadow. So when we repress our disinterest or our unease, we only make it stronger. Yet if we regard it without judgment, with curiosity instead of fear, we recognize that it is not an enemy, but a messenger reminding us that life does not lie in noise, but in the meaning we give it. Perhaps some do not enjoy their birthday because they feel there is nothing real to celebrate. That is not weakness, it is clarity. It is the sign of an awareness that refuses to live on the surface. From a Jungian perspective, disinterest is not stagnation, but a transitional phase, the moment when the soul sets out to find a deeper meaning. And until it discovers that meaning, it would rather withdraw than lie. When someone feels unwell on their birthday, it does not mean they are rejecting life. It means their soul is undergoing a process that superficial celebration cannot capture. From a Jungian perspective, such phases of emotional distance are opportunities in which the unconscious speaks. The ego, always eager to make a good impression, wants to shine on such days, to appear grateful and cheerful. But the unconscious does not care about facades. It speaks through symbols, dreams, subtle sensations. So when one feels melancholy or indifference on their birthday, it may be a sign a forgotten, repressed, or unacknowledged part of us wants to be seen. Jung said, the unconscious always strives for balance, often through emotions we do not immediately understand. This inexplicable sadness, the urge to withdraw, the questions about the passage of time, all are messages. They reveal that the soul is trying to remind us of what we have lost. Our authenticity, our inner meaning, our connection to the whole. While society celebrates youth, success, and vitality, the unconscious celebrates something else: inner maturity, acceptance of change, and the wisdom that arises from the passage of time. For Jung, every birthday was a symbolic ritual, a transition in which the old departs and the new, still unseen, begins. That inner restlessness, at the time of celebration, is often the beginning of transformation. For when the unconscious calls, it invites us to look inward, to face what we have repressed, and to rediscover the true meaning of life. Not in celebration itself, but in the awareness of being alive and continually evolving. When we grasp what the unconscious wants to tell us, the birthday becomes more than just a date. It becomes a symbolic gateway, a moment in which the soul asks us to pause, to look back, and to truly listen. It is not about rejecting celebration, but about giving it depth. Whoever walks this inner path undergoes, without even realizing it, a rebirth. They need no gifts, no parties, no spectators, only silence, presence, and truth. In this state, solitude becomes something sacred, and melancholy transforms into a teacher that helps us see life more consciously. Each passing year does not merely make us older, but more aware. It invites us to let go of old roles, to reconcile with time, and to recognize that life is not about collecting years, but about living them with authenticity. Perhaps the people who do not enjoy their birthdays are more deeply connected with something spiritual, numb with the realization that their life does not need public confirmation, but a quiet understanding by their own soul. That is the difference between a life that wants to be seen and a life that wants to be understood. So, if next time you feel no desire for your birthday, do not condemn yourself. Perhaps you are standing on the threshold of one of the most honest moments of your life. Perhaps your unconscious is saying you are no longer the same. It is time to be reborn. And in that silent rebirth lies the purest form of celebration, not in noise, but in understanding, not in masks, but in truth.